Our next guest is going to help us navigate holiday anxiety and lagging consumer confidence, affordability concerns, and most importantly, maybe some divisive political topics. Harvard professor Arthur Brooks. He hosts the podcast Office Hours with Arthur Brooks. He's, of course, the best-selling author of The Happiness Files and is a contributor for The Atlantic. Good morning to you. We always talk about getting around the Thanksgiving Day table and trying to have civil discourse, Arthur. I just want the tips and tricks for the civil discourse when you have some folks that you may not always agree with.
Yeah, no, Andrew, it looks like you're on the road someplace. Are you visiting family? Is that what, does this spark your interest in what's going to happen tomorrow to you?
I'm always trying to figure out how to have that. I need to have the civil discourse in the morning. You know, we do it over breakfast. It's called Squawk Box. Yeah,
no, I hear you. And the truth of the matter is there's a lot written about this. There's a lot of research on this. Behavioral scientists have talked about not how to disagree less, but actually how to disagree better. And a couple of things to keep in mind for a lot of people who are going to their extended family, for example, there's Aunt Marge is going to be there. You don't see her but once a year, and she's going to insist on talking about the federal government or something. And there's a couple of two don'ts that are actually just as important as the two do's, a couple of things to think about. The first is to remember that when you have a disagreement about something with somebody you rarely see, a contentious topic like politics, that's actually not, you're not going to convince anybody. But what we want to do is persuade when we're arguing, and we almost never persuade anybody. When somebody is shut down, when you're arguing with them, they have something that psychologists call the boomerang effect, and they actually believe their ideological viewpoint more strongly than when you started arguing with them. So that's the first thing to kind of game out a little bit and to be thinking about. And the second thing to keep in mind is that every time you talk about politics, this is almost always the case, not just at Thanksgiving, you get less happy. There's a lot of research that shows that the more you think and talk about politics, the less happy you're going to be. And that makes you less grateful. It's kind of the counteracting mechanism to the whole point of Thanksgiving. So don't go in ready for a fight and don't actually get into politics. Those are the two don'ts, actually.
Okay, so here's my question. We sometimes at our table, there's like a little bit of a rule with when certain topics go into certain places. Sometimes someone will say, we're not talking about that. That's off limits. We got to just ixnay that from the whole discussion agenda. Yeah. Is that the appropriate way or not?
Well, you can make it explicit if you want, but what I recommend to people who are sort of the odd man out, I'm kind of the odd man out in many ways in my family discussions. I mean, all my kids are ideologically different than me and their spouses, as a matter of fact. My extended family, they're more conservative than I am. And that doesn't mean that we can't talk about these things, but it means that we have to not get into a big argument about it. And that requires kind of a skill on my part of leading the conversation into something that's more pleasant, that we all think about as a source of gratitude, as opposed to a source of conflict in the family. Now, we can talk about those things. We've known these differences exist the whole time, but life is short, man. Why would you want to talk about politics when you're around the Thanksgiving table?
How do you do that, Arthur? Do you steer it back to, did you see the art project that my grandchild brought home last week? I mean, is it more subtle than that?
Yeah, well, one of the things to actually be thinking about is to introduce a topic of your own gratitude, which is really important. And say, I got something I got to say that I'm really, really grateful for. And it'll be a memory. It'll be a shared idea that you all have together. And especially when you're talking with extended family, when you have memories of something, when you reconstruct a memory of something that you all share, that's something that people are really quite interested in, as a matter of fact. So shared values are a lot better than unshared ideological viewpoints.
Arthur, I have a different one, which is involving kids in these discussions. So I now have 15-year-old boys and actually a very, very vocal 8-year-old too, who likes to get in on all of this stuff. And I can't figure out, am I supposed to? I love when they're debating these things, but then I also don't know if it's going to upset my mother or their mother-in-law or who knows what.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's actually worth talking about is by modeling the behavior that you actually want to see and coaching people in a very specific way to say, look, if we have any disagreement around the table, let's do it in a way that's actually not going to upset people and that we can actually laugh about it in a particular way. And the most important thing that you can do, Andrew, is making sure that you're never the source of the bitterness in the first place. Now, here's how to do that, by the way. Look, we all have strong opinions for sure. But the way to look at this is to say, you know, if there's somebody who really disagrees with me around the table, and especially if they're impossible to coach and manage, Aunt Marge can't shut up, is to actually think about it kind of like you were a social scientist in a field experiment. I've done so many of these experiments where I'm sitting with people who disagree with each other, and I'm just watching and learning and thinking about it kind of in that way will give you a lot better time, and it'll give you kind of an equanimity that people will admire during the dinner.